Welcome to the American Railroading Podcast, brought to you by the Revolution Rail Group, live from the great state of Texas. Join us as we educate, entertain, and explore the world of American railroading. Here's your host, industry veteran, Don Walsh.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the American Railroading Podcast. I am your host, Don Walsh, President and CEO of the Revolution Rail Group. We are the anchor sponsor for the American Railroading Podcast. We provide consulting services and brokering services. I should know that by now for the railcar industry. If you're needing our help with anything from merger acquisition to process flow analysis, market analysis, we can help you with that. We can also help you with railcar leasing, subleasing, and selling of railcars. You can reach out to us today at 844-455-3434 or info@therevolutionrailgroup.com. You can also check out our full suite of services at our website at therevolutionrailgroup.com. Well, Happy New Year. It's crazy to think that we're in 2025, and by the time this airs, it'll be pretty much the end of January already. So, gosh, I mean, the last half of last year flew by, and January is already almost over. So this is crazy. But I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas, because I haven't spoken to you since before Christmas, and a Happy New Year as well. We just had our first snow in several years here in the Houston area, which shut everything down, which of course is not unusual. But I have friends in Florida. Those of you listening from Florida, you got a bunch of snow. Jacksonville, not Jacksonville. Yeah, Jacksonville got some snow. Pensacola, my friends there, got 8 inches of snow, which is crazy. Louisiana got a bunch of snow. So hopefully y'all made it through that okay. And spring is right around the corner. Don't you worry. Thanks to all of you who remain in the top 10% of all podcasts globally, which is a total blessing. We've now been downloaded in 48 countries around the world. Yes, we've added 2 new countries since the last time we talked to you guys last year. So the 2 new countries are Egypt and Vietnam. So thank you to those of you in Egypt and Vietnam who have been listening to us and subscribing and following. For the all-time downloads, U.S. is still number 1, Canada is still number 2, and Australia is number 3. But in the last 30 days, just looking at the last 30 days numbers, we've got France that came in and swooped into second place by a lot, by a whole bunch. It's not even close. So thank you to everybody in France. And we got New Zealand in 3rd place for the month. I want to say hello to our friends in Japan, Poland, and Kenya. So please continue to download, continue to subscribe, and to share and leave reviews. Folks, I know I say it every episode, but it really helps us a ton if you leave reviews for us, especially a 5-star review if you think we're doing a good job. So please continue to do that and to share with your friends. I know that a lot of you have followers of your own, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X. Feel free to share away because it'll really help us out in the long run. But the reviews help us tremendously because it gets us further and further out into the interwebs with the algorithms. So if you like what you heard on the podcast, you can also buy us a cup of coffee. So we've actually had some people buy us a cup of coffee over the holidays. So thank you so much for that. If you're not familiar with that, you can go to our website at AmericanRailroading.net. Look at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You'll see a little yellow coffee cup. You can click on that and you can buy us 1 cup, 3 cups, 5 cups, or however many cups of coffee you want. And it's like leaving us a tip for doing a good job. So you can do that anytime you want. Thank you to those of you that have and those of you that will. Please be sure to check out our online store. So I just want to let you guys know, if you tried buying anything through the online store during Christmas, I do apologize. We did have to take the store down for maintenance. It was totally unexpected but necessary, so I apologize if we disrupted your Christmas shopping. But we will be up and running by the time this episode airs. So please go check us out at our website, again at AmericanRailroading.net. And you'll see a drop-down menu, and you can click on that, click on the online store, and shop to your heart's desire. We'd really appreciate it. And don't forget to check out our challenge coins. So our challenge coins are made up specifically to recognize those that are veterans in the railroad industry. And a portion of the sales of those challenge coins goes towards our friends at Boots for Troops. So please check that out when you go to our store. And again, shop to your little heart's desire. There's plenty to choose from. We're continuing to accept podcast sponsorships. We only have 1 gold sponsorship left. We have several silver sponsorships left. So if you're interested in becoming a sponsor of the podcast, please contact us today at marketing@AmericanRailroading.net. Again, that's marketing@AmericanRailroading.net, and we'll send you the entire package of options that you have available to you. And with that, I'd like to recognize our platinum sponsor, the Alden Company. Founded in 1904, Alden has been an industry leader, charting a steady course in the manufacturing and distribution of a wide variety of railroad safety and track repair tools and more. The Alden website boasts over 800 catalog items to choose from, with categories including track maintenance and repair, derailers and railers, signs and lights, wheel chocks and stops, rail cars and locomotives, and even truck docks. Alden provides outstanding customer service with a wide variety of solutions, and when you call them, you will always get a real person to talk to, not an automated service. While based in the Chicagoland area, the Alden name is known internationally, and with over 120 years in the rail industry, they're a company you can count on. Please reach out to our friends at Alden today at 847-623-8800 or e-rail@aldenco.com. You can also review all of their products and resources on their website at www.aldenco.com. Alden, keeping things on track since 1904. Well, our guest for today is me. Sorry about that if you're anticipating some tremendous guest of ours today, but it is me. So you're going to be stuck with me and producer John for today's episode, but I'm really looking forward to it. This is going to be our second annual where we've been and where we're going episode, kind of to touch on what we did last year in the podcast, what we're going to be doing this year in the podcast, as well as my opinion on the market, where I think the market's going for the railcar industry specifically in 2025. So I don't want to go through my background. You guys know all that, and if you don't, feel free to check out our website again at AmericanRailroading.net or even at the RevolutionRailGroup.com. My bio's in there, and you can check that all out if you'd like. Most of you know about me by now if you've been listening and following. So we're going to go ahead and go through last year, and then we're going to go through some Q&A where producer John's going to jump in and ask me some questions and probably trip me up on a few things. Hopefully, I'm up for the challenge.
I got it.
Well, producer John, welcome.
Hello. I feel like I'm on the wrong side of the camera today. Like, I keep feeling like I need to go over there.
Well, and so we talked about this beforehand, which I really wanted our viewers, especially on our YouTube channel. And by the way, those of you that are watching on YouTube, thank you so much. We have tripled.
Definitely. The numbers have gone way up since the inaugural episode, obviously, but yeah. I think the last one, I mean, we're starting to see real numbers, you know.
In the last 6 months, it's at least tripled, which is crazy. So thank you to all you that are watching us on YouTube. And but I said I want people to be able to see you because we usually don't see you. And you've done so much for the podcast. It's now entering season 3. Can you believe that?
I can't believe that, honestly. The fact that it's been that long is a little surreal to me. I don't feel like we've done that many episodes, but you look back at them and you're like, oh yeah, that was from 2 years ago. Wow. Okay. Yeah, we have done that many episodes.
It's really insane. I remember when I first started the podcast, John was saying to me, if you make it past the first episode, you're doing good. Yeah. And was it 3? If you make it past 3?
It's pretty much 5. Most of them, like, because 5's kind of a good test number. It's a month worth of episodes pretty much. And so most of them will try it out for a month. And then if they don't see the results, they'll quit.
Yeah. Well, we're at episode 23.
So we're doing it.
I think we did it.
We did it.
We're over the hump. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be on this side of the microphone for a change. So yeah, thanks for having me over here.
Absolutely. My pleasure, my friend. So episode 1 from last year, season 2, was our first ever where we've been and where we headed. And I wasn't really sure how that was going to go over.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a specific topic.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, that has been, to my surprise, it was our most downloaded episode from the audio side of things the whole year.
The whole year
of all the topics we discussed. So people obviously enjoyed being able to go back and because not everyone listens to every single episode as much as we'd like them to.
Yeah,
they may pick or choose. So I think people really enjoy being able to hear at a high level what the last year was about, and then they can go back and listen to the ones they weren't familiar with.
Absolutely, I think that's fair. Yeah,
and it gives some recognition too, again, to our guests.
Oh yeah,
and, which they deserve because every one of them, dedicated,
incredible, and took their time to be here on the podcast. And I don't think you've had a single person on here that wasn't knowledgeable in the field with the industry.
Well, and nobody said, when I asked, would you like to come back? Nobody said no.
No.
They're probably just being nice.
Most likely.
That could be.
I mean, who's going to say no in the moment they're on the podcast? We might use it, right? So
that's true.
We're not going to say no, but hey, it's a good way. You said yes already. So
see?
We'll keep doing it.
Now we got them.
We're letting go all the secrets today, guys.
Not at all. But it was the first time I also really gave my opinion on an episode because at that point I really hadn't done that.
You hadn't yet, no. And I really enjoyed that. And I thought, man, that is, I think, a direction that I think this show should start to steer is because you are an industry expert, and I think people need to hear your expertise from time to time.
Well, thank you. And that's where we came up with the idea of my 2 cents, which is at the end of every episode now, which isn't terribly in depth, but it just kind of gives a high level my thoughts of that topic that we discussed that day, and seems to be going pretty well so far.
Yeah,
so.
I like to put the sound effects in that part of the show.
That's true. That little
it's one of my favorite.
I think it's good. People seem to enjoy it. Episode 2 was our first in the series of Tech Talk. So Tech Talk.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and with John Schmitter, the advantages of embracing technology. John Schmitter was our guest. He is the, John, I'm sorry. I believe your title is COO?
I think that's
for Rail
right.
State. John's great. I actually just saw him at the Midwest Association of Rail Shippers Conference in Chicago. He always teaches a couple different classes at the Mars conference. And that was really, really cool because that was our first episode where we did a deep dive into technology, and which, we're really, as an industry, I hate to say it, but we're always seemingly a little bit behind in trends in general when it comes to technology. The railroad industry just seems a little stubborn and stuck in our ways at times, and I'm not speaking out of school. I'm sure anybody in our industry would agree with that.
Is it just, you think, maybe because it's been around for so long, it's such an old industry?
There's a lot of, we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
And as a consultant in the industry, that's good for me.
Yeah.
So because, a lot of times I'll get a call and say, hey, we need somebody to help us figure out, what's not working. And a lot of times it's because there's a lot of that thought of, we've always done it this way.
Right.
Well, clearly we can find a better way.
Yeah.
So that really was an interesting episode because we dug into kind of the transition of technology over the years, kind of at a very, very broad level. And then John and I had a great conversation about how technology continues to grow, continues to change, and specifically Rail State has been providing some new information out there for giving more visibility to the network, which is really important. And we also talked about AI a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is we also got into a little bit of the AI in that episode, which kind of excited me, even though that I'm not in the railroad industry. Just the thought that you could track something from ship to yard, that through AI, exactly where it is, and you're getting real-time updates of, it's in Colorado. Oh, it's in Utah now, that is incredible to me. And just the capabilities of that, what we could do with that is just, it's awesome.
And people tend to be scared by AI, and I get that.
Yeah,
but
Skynet,
Exactly. And, but the thing is, I said in my 2 cents at the end of that episode, AI can be a very good thing if it's used properly. And in our industry, I was speaking with somebody the other day that has developed an AI program for railcar inspections as the cars are moving.
Right. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so...
Well, they're doing that with road shipping now, with trucks.
Yeah. So I haven't checked out the system yet, but just the thought of that to provide greater safety. And now we're a very safe industry. We know that. I think the failure rate's 0.0001%. So we're a very safe industry, but we're always looking to improve. And so if AI can help us do that, great, but it would have to be done responsibly, obviously.
Yeah.
But that was a great episode with John. So if you haven't checked out that episode yet and you're into technology, please go ahead and check that out.
Absolutely.
Episode 3 was with our friend Wendy Buckley. Wendy was our very first guest. So this was actually our anniversary episode. And it was hazmat safety, rail, and transloading with Wendy Buckley from Stars Hazmat Consulting. And I also just ran into Wendy at the Midwest Association of Rail Shippers Conference in Chicago, which was extremely cold, by the way. To everyone at Mars, we love you. It's a great conference, but gosh, can we move it to
July?
No, we do it again in July.
Okay.
So that's the second one of the year. But if we could just move it to February, maybe.
Get towards the tail end of winter, snow melting.
But I love seeing everybody. It's just, it's cold.
The windy city, right?
I think it was 4 degrees when I arrived. Yeah, but hey, it was a great event, and I got to see Wendy and John and others. And but this was our first episode with our platinum sponsor, the Alden Company. So that was a really, really big deal. Yeah. Historic moment for us as a podcast, really. And to have our first sponsor on it, for it to be something like the Alden Company that's been around for I think 150 years or so. So thank you again to everybody at the Alden Company. We love having you on board, and we're almost at our year anniversary with y'all. So looking forward to having you on for year 2 of your sponsorship. So thank you. And Wendy and I covered a ton of ground when it comes to hazmat in transloading and in just rail in general. So she talked about the importance of proper hazmat training, understanding packing groups, placarding, and having the correct and current SDS, the safety data sheet, which may be common sense for those of us in the industry, but common sense isn't always common.
It's not that common sometimes, right?
Right. And the need for transloading companies to train their employees on the differences between rail cars and trucks, because they do deal with both. And there are differences. They're not the same. And then Wendy provided an update on the vinyl chloride material release and the remediation from the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment from February 3rd of 2023. So when we had her on the first episode, we talked about that initially.
Oh, yeah.
And so she gave the feedback based on what we knew at that time. But in the year that transpired, there was a lot of information that came out.
Yeah.
And so she gave a great update on that. So again, if you're into hazmat, and Wendy's amazing. So if you haven't heard that episode yet, please go back and listen.
I had a weird takeaway from that episode that stuck with me. It was where she was talking about if you can cover the scene of the wreck with your thumb, you're far enough away from the explosion zone.
You remember that?
And I have been using that. My son was telling someone the other day, he held his thumb up and was like, we're far enough away. And I started laughing so hard, and I was like, that's from a podcast. And I was like, oh, it's from Don's podcast.
Is that where you got it from?
Yeah.
Seriously?
No, I got it from here. And so I told him, and then in turn, he has started using it now, full circle.
Wow. See the impact we're making on children.
Worldwide.
Yeah, 48 countries. All around the world. There's children everywhere putting their thumb out right now.
Seeing if they're far enough away.
It's great. I love that. So Wendy and I were talking about the possibility of, she asked me about coming back on the podcast for our anniversary. So I'm not going to say just yet. We're going to leave it as a little bit of a teaser for everybody.
All right.
You have to tune in and see if we get Wendy back this year. But of course, we would love to. And she has a wealth of knowledge in hazmat. So I'm sure we have plenty to talk about her. And I talked about some things even there at the conference that we could discuss. I mean, hazmat, you can honestly talk about probably all year long and then some.
Well, yeah.
And never run out of things to talk about.
Because it's always developing. And now lithium-ion batteries are a big thing in that training. Because I don't know if you know this about a lithium-ion battery, but if I'm going to put this out there, they're fairly dangerous when it comes to fire.
And water.
Hold on, fairly? They're extremely dangerous when it comes to fire and water when you're dealing with the lithium-ion mixture there.
Well, when the floods hit, and I don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole, but when the floods hit last year after Hurricane, was it Helene?
Or Beryl, or... Yeah. Depends on what you're talking about.
But some nasty storms came through the country, and that people were shocked that garages were starting on fire. During a flood.
How was that happening?
And it was happening because of these battery-powered vehicles. The lithium.
Way to not drop the name there. That was nice of you.
Well, there's several. I think. There's options out there.
Yeah, we know it was blown up.
but the lithium-ion batteries, when they come in contact with water, does not go well and ignites. So.
It does. So, and according to a firefighter I talked to, there's really not a way to put it out because the lithium ion will create its own oxygen as it burns. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's something we can certainly talk to her about.
Absolutely.
Is the proper care and disposal of things like that. Episode 4. This is another technical one. It was Intro to Tank Car Repair Facilities with my friend Dave Ronzani of All Transtech, and we specifically went over regulatory compliance and training. And I've known Dave for a long, long time, and it was great to have him on. So, Dave, thank you again for being our guest. I know that you were a little apprehensive about doing it, but you did an amazing job. So, and there were people that actually commented on it that know Dave, because Dave's been around a long time, longer than me, which is a a long time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right? Thanks, John.
Sorry. I thought it'd be
true.
funny.
I know I have a baby face and all, but it's been a long time. But I hope Dave saw these comments from people between LinkedIn and also reviews that we've gotten on the website and on Apple podcast. And I believe also on YouTube, people are saying, oh, I love Dave. Dave is amazing. So, Dave, you're amazing. People love you. Thank you for being our guest. And what we went over was so well received, by everybody. Because it was important to me to talk about this because shippers obviously get frustrated when their tank cars specifically take a long time to get out of shop.
Yeah, I could see that.
And there are ways to improve that. I'm not saying there aren't, because there certainly are. But I just wanted to kind of touch on the amount of education that it takes, the amount of training that it takes, the amount of equipment that it takes, and the dedication to quality assurance and all that. It takes time. I wish these things could go faster, and they could go a little faster than some of the shops are doing, so don't get me wrong. But just to kind of give people an idea of how involved the process is, and it really achieved that.
I would 100% say that it did, because I remember thinking, going into the recording, sorry, David, thinking, I don't know how well this is going to pan out. But then as soon as we got in there and started talking with him, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fine. This is a great episode. Yeah, we're right there.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to be, you don't want to be overly technical.
Right. And that's what I think David's fear is that I'm being too nerdy. But I'm like, nah, bring it on. We love it. Nerd it up.
Yeah. And then what we do a lot of times, and those of you that have followed and listened for some time now probably realize, is I'll stop and I'll say, hey, can you explain what this means? Because we use a lot of acronyms. Our industry is famous for acronyms.
Yeah.
So we break it down, or just a term like fraud.
Well, I wonder if that stems from the historic of like passing in the train and kind of having to quickly exchange information. Sure. So yeah,
absolutely,
makes sense.
So there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
And that's something we talked about, is how many manuals there are. And we talked about it in episodes further down the line as well. I mean, my gosh, we have full libraries at shops, railcar repair shops, that you have to be familiar with. You don't have to memorize everything. I was always told, just know where to find it.
Oh, that's a good.
Don't memorize it all, just know where to find it. And that's important. And so we would actually have libraries to go to get the Bureau of Explosives manual, the AAR field or office manual, or what have you. And that every customer has their own requirements for tank car qualifications and things like that. So, gosh, it's an awful lot. And we did do a deep dive of that for anyone that's interested in learning about that or hearing about what it takes to be a tank car certified repair facility. It's quite a bit. And that's episode 4 and of season 2. And we went into the process of the certification process for a tank car repair facility, the manuals, the equipment, the personnel, the training. And this is something that over the years has just gotten to be quite costly, truthfully. When I started, and there was different costs. You had a cost for mini and mobiles, and then you had a cost to certify a full service shop. So, a mini and mobile, it could be $400. To get certified. At that time, it was $400, I think, to get certified, and you send in a letter requesting to become certified, and that was the end of it. Now it's $60,000, which is an awful lot of money.
That seems steep, but I mean, I don't know really what it entails.
It is an involved process, but that's just for one location annually.
Just for one location annually.
Right. So imagine it being a large service provider with, 10 full service repair facilities. Well, yeah,
if you had a bunch of,
it gets costly.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I honestly wanted to point out too for shippers, is that, and car owners, is that I know rates are going up. I know they're going to continue to go up, and there's a reason for that. I mean, the overhead and cost of doing business for these repair facilities is becoming extensive.
Are kind of getting off. I don't want to chase a rabbit. If I chase a rabbit, just get me back on trail. Yeah, shoot the rabbit and get me back on trail. But
we'll keep the foot, though, for good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that it's kind of like in other industries where we've gone more to a model of, instead of repair things, replace? And so I get we're probably talking a large sum and purchasing a brand new rail car, but do you see that there's a potential for it to go there possibly? No,
like you said, the cost is one thing. The other thing is that these cars have a 50-year lifespan. So they're really wanting, and think about the initial investment just from a finance standpoint.
Right.
They're amortizing that out. So if they scrap that car and go to buy a new one, they've got it from a financial standpoint, not to bore you guys, but they would have to take that financial hit all at one time.
Gotcha.
Rather than spreading it out over 20 years.
Yeah. It would
so if it's a 10-year-old car, now if it's a derailment and it's actually what they call DV'd out, devaluated out to where it's just not usable anymore, then yes.
Okay.
But in that case, they're getting some compensation for that from the railroad.
Because there was an accident or something that caused it. Okay.
But if it's just, so it would have to be significant damage.
I gotcha.
Because it is so costly. From a front, their P&L, their profit and loss statement, is going to show $100 and some odd $1,000 hit.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then you go out and spend another $180,000 or whatever it is now
to get the new
one.
Yeah,
and then
so then you're looking at a loss of close to $400. Yeah,
it's just Yeah.
Yeah, I could add up real quick. Yeah, two cars and you're at $1 million, right? Yeah.
It's definitely cheaper to repair it. And then depending on how the lease is written as well, you've got the car owner responsible for some things, the lessee responsible for some things. Some things. And so that helps kind of share the cost a little bit.
Right.
And so, I would definitely recommend repairing whenever humanly possible.
Okay.
And again, there is a rabbit hole I can go down for all the different ways.
And I knew it was a rabbit hole. That's why I was telling you, don't chase the rabbit with me if you don't want to. But
we could do a whole episode on that, and I would love to do more. And don't worry, guys, we're going to do more on the shop networks.
Nice.
And how we can maybe, see some improvements on throughput and stuff to try. Because efficiencies are so important in a repair shop, and from both sides. If you're owning a repair shop, it's important to you because that's how you make money.
Right.
If you're shipping and that's your car sitting in there, you're not making money while it's in there.
Because it's sitting.
Because it's sitting there. And then as a car owner who's leasing it to that shipper, you're paying rental credits.
For it to sit there.
So it behooves everybody for that car to move quickly.
Yeah.
But that involves a total supply chain as well.
Yeah.
Because if the valves aren't there when they're supposed to be, or the paint and lining material's not there when it's supposed to be, it's a problem. So it's really the whole circle of life in the supply chain, as well as the proper running of the facility. And again, this is a whole rabbit hole, but it could also be the car owner or the shipper not getting back to you fast enough with approvals.
Right. And then so-and-so has to move on to the next job or something. Yeah. And they won't be back until...
And it happens. You're absolutely right. They'll take that rail car out of the shop and put it on the back 40 somewhere.
Because it's got to get out of the way.
Well, and they got to keep people moving, and they're paying these people to be there every day.
Right.
So get that next car in there, get them working on that. That one's approved already. And then when you get the material in, or the approval for the one you put on the back 40, now it's buried 100 cars deep.
Yeah, and so now that's a task just to get it out. It's a day's worth of work just to get the car. Yeah.
So you see how this could just be a total...
I see how it can add up quick, and I kind of see why there's so much regulation and why it kind of gets expensive quickly. But
it does, and the regulation, I think, is warranted.
I agree. Yeah.
Because they're carrying commodities that, not to scare anybody, but some of them are food grade, but some of them are petrochemical based, and some of them can cause problems if they leak. Yeah. So it's very important to ensure that they're safe and suitable for what we call interchange. Yeah. So that they're not going to have problems. So,
well, I think even totally from a security standpoint, so people can't take what's in the car for themselves type thing, there's also that aspect of it too. I think people don't consider.
Yeah. And then again, that's an episode that I would love to get into at some point this year, which we haven't scheduled yet, but how to ensure the security.
Gotcha. Of them. And make sure they're safe.
Yeah. So, but that's definitely on my list of things I would love to talk about, and I have some ideas on that. So, a little bit of a teaser again for our audience on something we could do for the season 3. Episode 5 was part of our Rail Resources series, and that was with the League of Railway Women, President Sarah Urosco. And I really enjoyed that episode because I was not familiar with LRW myself, and I've been around forever. Yeah. And I just heard about them earlier last year. I think it was maybe the end of the previous year. So I really wanted to learn more about them myself, but I also wanted the industry to be more aware of them because they are a huge resource.
Absolutely.
So just they were founded in 1997, which really I was like, man, how have I not heard about them when they've been around since 1997? And it's not their fault. But I want to make sure I got them out on the interwebs through our podcast and let more people know about them. And I think it went really, really well. Our audience was very receptive to it as well. And I love their mantra, how they're founded to support women not only in railroading, but also to be inclusive of all women in companies that support the railroad industry, which I think is great.
I think so too.
And the scholarship programs and the training programs.
I thought it was cool with that episode. We were doing like a themed episode of like women's empowerment, women's month, kind of that correlation. I thought it was cool that we had kind of reached that point as a podcast that we were able to do that. So
yeah, for sure. And to give them the recognition and spotlight I felt that they deserved for the ladies in our industry that might be interested in utilizing a group like that. So I think it was absolutely great. And and our ratings showed that as well. So thank you again, Sarah, for joining us. And everybody check that out if you're interested. That would be episode 5 from last year. Episode 6. So this is one of my favorite episodes. Yeah. So this was the state of our economy and upcoming presidential election with my friend.
It was the guest.
Professor John Doggett,
Yep.
from University of Texas in Austin. And so I had seen Professor Doggett several times speaking at events. And I believe he's been at SWAR, Southwest Association Rail Shippers Conference, several times. And
I want to say y'all kind of loosely discussed something to that effect.
yeah. And he's a tremendous speaker. What I like about economists in general is that there's no BS.
That was my favorite thing right off the bat.
It's based on data.
Yeah, this will be fun.
And now you may interpret the data differently, but there's no political leanings. There's no slanting one thing or another. I mean, I guess you could try to do that, but generally economists don't. This is what the numbers are. This is what it means. Like it or don't like it. And I'll tell you, I've always enjoyed his directness.
Yes.
But he gave such amazing insight into the economy, talking about ugly baby glasses, and you'll have to listen to know what that means.
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna spill the beans. I want you guys to listen to this episode because it was also prior to the election, and he had some input, some thoughts on the election itself and the potential consequences. Because he actually said he felt that this was the most consequential presidential election in our lifetime as far as the direction of our country and how it'll affect our industry and the economy as a whole. And gosh, there was so much good information in there.
Yeah, that episode was good, even just from an economy standpoint, not even industry specific, but just overall economy for America right now. I think it'd still be valid right now, honestly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I also want to say, John, I'm so sorry about the Cotton Bowl. Man, so it was Texas versus Ohio State.
So funny story about that. I was DJing a gig that night, and they had the game directly behind me. So all night I was just getting these dirty looks all night. And
Nothing
I'm like,
personal.
Is it me? Is it the song? And I realized, it's okay. We're fine.
Nothing personal.
Nothing personal.
And truthfully, there was a penalty in the end zone.
There was a moment
where it was not called, and had that been called, I mean,
it's a different game at that point.
Yeah,
but they'll be talking about that one for 20 years.
If it's in butts for candy and nuts or whatever that is. Yeah, I know. But John, I'm sorry, man. We were pulling for your team, but and actually I heard the quarterback now is proclaimed to go to the NFL next year.
Nice.
Which leads the way for Mr. Manning to step in and play for next year. So those of you that don't follow, I apologize, but I really become a big fan of Texas college sports moving here.
They'll still run two quarterbacks. They've been doing that since 1994, I swear.
True story. So but it really meant a lot to me to have John on, because I really respect him so much. And I mean, gosh, the guy, and John, I'm sure you're listening, because what I didn't realize is he'd listened to every episode to this point, and he actually had some really kind things to say. But for someone with his background he had his own radio show for years that was syndicated, and he's just amazing. So thank you, John, for joining us. And anyone that loves listening about data and the economy and how it's going to affect us, please listen to that episode 6 from last year. Yeah. So I could talk about that episode forever. And my friend John Doggett. So, but with this moment, I would like to take to recognize our gold sponsor, EnviroServe. EnviroServe is America's premier provider of comprehensive, reliable, effective, and eco-friendly environmental solutions for the rail industry. Their rail services include mobile railcar cleaning, flaring, interior blasting and transloading, removal and replacement of tank car service equipment, and leak testing. Complete haz and non-haz waste handling, management, remediation, and disposal services, 24/7 emergency spill response, and more. To learn more, please visit their website at www.enviroserve.com. Well, episode 7 was a guest that I was trying to get for, it seemed like 2 years. I think it was only a year. And this is not anything against.
It was just a correlation of schedules.
I was going to say it was nobody's fault. And actually, I really enjoyed getting to know people in the process.
Yeah, because
we got to be, pretty known with one another throughout the year. So that it took, and you'll understand why it took so long in a minute, because it was the U.S. Army. And so the U.S. Army, takes, you have to go through some hoops, and it's totally understandable.
I had to go through a DOD thing to get the images that he sent us or whatever, because it was all encrypted and all that.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was cool.
Which is totally understandable.
Felt like a spy or something.
That's right. Like you were working for the government.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like Get Smart, maybe.
Exactly. That'd probably be an accurate
Thankfully,
depiction.
we didn't have the cone of silence for the interview, because that would be difficult. Point taken. So episode 7 was the history between the U.S. Army and American railroading with Joseph Sepp Scanlon, U.S. Army retired. And Sepp was great. I mean, gosh, if you want to find someone that understands the history, not just of railroad, because he handles a lot of different history, just in transportation in general, Sepp is your man. And what I really thought was cool was so I was just doing research, honestly, for the podcast, and I stumbled across, because I love the military. As you guys know, I'm involved with Boots for Troops here in Tomball, Texas, and so I'm really big on our veterans. And I was really just looking for something we could talk about, because I knew that the military had trains of their own, but I didn't realize that there was a Army Transportation Corps. Yeah. So when I stumbled upon that in research, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I think other people will find this interesting as well. And then just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger as I was investigating it. And it's like, holy cow, there's so much to talk about with this. And so Sepp actually oversees the museum. And holy cow, I mean, we could have talked for multiple episodes, and we're going to, by the way.
Yes, I will have to.
We're definitely going to, and they've offered to do that for us, to talk about different aspects, because there was no way we could talk about everything in one episode. There's just so much to cover. But we literally started the pre-Civil War period in history and ended with Afghanistan. And so Sepp just really gave us great detail and discussed the U.S. Army Transportation Museum, which he oversees. And there's over 7,000 artifacts and exhibits there, which is mind-blowing.
That's, astonishing that there's that much stuff.
Yeah. And so what was your takeaway from that episode in particular?
Man, I think it was the thing that impacted me most is something that it's that common sense thing again, but something that I don't think is at the forefront of our thought, and that is that, for the military to move, we live here in America, and our military actions don't take place here. So transportation is a huge part of what we do as military actions. So the biggest takeaway that I had from Sepp from that episode was that until we move something in and have a transportation line, rail, whatever it is, until we have that transportation line, we don't even have anything. And that was a big eye-opener for me, and just how important rail is to our lives that we overlook constantly as just regular consumers.
Yeah, and how they do it on the fly. So when they're in another country, I mean, they have different gauges of rail versus what we have. So there's, I believe, I know in the research I saw
he was talking about that, the
how they would adapt to make it work.
Because it was the width of the mule cart or whatever, the ox cart.
Yes. Yeah, originally. And we talked about how pre-World War II and during World War II, how the different countries that are right adjacent to one another all had different gauges, so that you couldn't run a train through from one to the other. So how do you go about making that work in real time? So, and then I actually did get an email from someone involved in, and I want to call you out, because I'm so sorry I didn't get back to you, but I did read your email, and they're actually with the Transportation Corps, and they asked if we could do some more in-depth stuff. Gotcha. So we would love to, just to kind of answer you live as we talk here. We just didn't have a whole lot we had one episode to try to go over as much as we could, and so we absolutely intend to do more with Sepp and others from the U.S. Transportation Corps, U.S. Army Transportation Corps. So don't worry. We didn't mean to not discuss certain aspects. Right. It's just, we're going to do more episodes to get into more detail in the future. So don't worry, we will definitely do that. But yeah, man, I was really impressed with Sepp and his level of knowledge. And also, that was our first episode with our new gold sponsor at the time.
Oh, that's right.
EnviroServe. So it was very exciting to get EnviroServe on board, and known these folks forever and ever. Yeah. And again, I've been around forever, seems like.
That's why they've always done it that way.
I know. And so love having EnviroServe on board and their entire team. And I'll tell you what, this is really neat. So whenever we're at conferences, because we're always at conferences together, wherever I'm at, EnviroServe is, wherever EnviroServe is, it seems like I'm at. And this truly happens, and it happened at the last conference. They were again at the Midwest Association of Rail Shippers conference as well. And I think it was there and also at the previous Southwest Association of Rail Shippers, and maybe Tank Car Committee for the AAR. But we're walking side by side talking, myself and the folks from EnviroServe, Scott and Shelby and James and others. And the person walked up to me who I did not know. They must have recognized me from the YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
And they saw the EnviroServe logo on their shirts.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, oh, EnviroServe, they said, oh, the sponsors of the podcast. And I just thought that was cool.
That is cool.
Because they're getting recognized immediately as sponsors of the American Railroading Podcast.
Yeah.
Which, hey, that's the point.
That is the
right?
point.
That is the point of being a sponsor, is you're going to be recognized by a broader group of people that you hadn't been able to reach before. So that to me was saying, hey, this is working.
Right. And then here's a little producer's 2 cents for you. That also shows you why, advertising, sponsorship, and all that is worth it, because you put yourself on that level where people recognize you. Hey, that's the thing from the thing I like.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So that was really neat. I got a kick out of it. I think it was Scott Denson that was with me at the time that smiled and nodded. He said, yeah, that's us. And then what can we do for you? How can we help you? Right. And it sparked that conversation. So those of you that are considering sponsorships, see how it works. Yeah. It's beneficial for everybody. So, loved it. Absolutely love it. Episode 8 with my friend Tim Schaefer of PPG Industries. So episode 8 was intro to railcar paint and lining processes with Tim Schaefer. And so this episode was recorded in, I guess it was August, right? I believe, episode 8 would make sense. It was August of last year. I know. Number 8. Yeah. It would only make sense. Yeah. But this was an important episode to me for a multitude of reasons. Right. So this episode was recorded shortly after my mentor, Joe Schischler Sr., the founder of Rescar Industries, passed away. And we had his memorial and funeral and all. And so this is after I'd gotten back in town from, paying my respects to Joe. And Tim and I both worked for Joe Sr. At one time in our careers with Rescar. And so I just thought it was important to not only discuss this subject, which again, people definitely want to hear about, because that's what we got from the All Transtech episode, getting into the tank car repair facilities, is that, the processes are important to people. Right. Because paint and lining is an area, as any car owner knows or any shipper knows that sent a rail car into shop, it can be a bottleneck. So I really wanted to get into discussing why. It's not an easy task at all. No. And so we wanted to make sure we got into all that, and we did. But it was important to have Tim on specifically. He's my friend, and we've known each other forever. But also we had that relationship with Joe Sr., and so it all kind of tied together. And so it was very meaningful.
It was. It was very kind of powerful in a way of, look at these the new industry tycoons kind of coming into their own as one goes out. That's kind of the way I looked at it anyway.
And we're all connected because of him.
Right.
He's really touched a lot of lives. So and then Tim and I discuss the importance of railcar coatings, along with a deep dive into the overall paint and lining processes, including everything from surface prep to training and the finished product. Surface prep, I'm telling you, it's like, I think it's something like 85% of the failures of a lining or a coating, exterior coating, is due to improper surface prep. And I don't think people realize
mostly why paint doesn't bond is you didn't prep it right.
Well, it could be sweat.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell people, in humidity. Yeah. So again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much with all this. I want you to listen to the episode. Right. But there's just so many things that could cause a problem. Oh, yeah. And so we get into all that as far as, hey, you need to be as far as a shop person, somebody employed there, what to look for, what to look out for. But also as a customer,
how to order, what to expect.
What to expect, because you have to have realistic expectations when you're sending cars into shop. Everybody wants a 30-day turn time.
Yeah, of course, but
when it comes to tank cars specifically, box cars, hopper cars, maybe even auto racks, maybe you can have a quicker turn time. But tank cars are a different animal. because of the valves, because of the pressure tests, the leakage pressure tests, because of the regulatory compliance, because of the linings and coatings. It could just take longer. Now, if you're seeing a tank car facility rocking, medium to heavy hour tank cars in 30 days, then continue to use them because they have figured something out.
They got it.
Not that it's impossible, but it's a challenge because there's a lot of potential things to slow down the process. So this is definitely one of them, but we wanted to really kind of get into that.
Right.
And also give some props to those that are doing the jobs, especially the blasting, because it is a thankless job. It's a hard job.
It's one of those micro dirty jobs, right?
It totally is. Yeah. And, but I'll tell you what, I like nothing more as a plant manager, as I'm leaving on a Friday to walk out on the QA/QC portion of our track for where cars were lined up to be decaled, or maybe they just had been decaled after a paint job. And it's like, man, good. Well, it kind of goes back to any of you whatever job you guys do out there, you take pride in it, right?
Yeah.
And so, Mike, when I would go jobs with my dad, and he'd be building a deck, let's say, or something like that, he would drive by the home and point at it and say, I did that. Right?
I do that to my kid.
Right?
I did a show there.
Right.
A show there.
We all do that. So I would always love to walk out on the final line when cars are getting QA/QC'd to see how just beautiful they look with the new paint and stuff. So it's a beautiful thing and a necessary thing as well. But if you'd like to listen to my interview with him, that is episode 8 from last year. But also, we got a ton of positive feedback on that episode from people in the industry that are involved in paint and lining, and from employees that are doing the jobs, because we went so in depth of the difficulty and the training and all that, and really the artistry that it takes to do something like that. I mean, I've said that about welders too. It's an artistry, but paint and lining, it certainly is, because the margin for error is so small. But also, I would also like to tell you guys, if you want to listen to my interview with Joe Schischler Sr., which was from the previous year, it is our most downloaded video of all time. By far. It's not even close. It's well over double the next one. So, and I think that's because, again, he touched my life, Tim Schafer's life, so many people's lives.
Everyone in the industry. And I think they wanted to see him, Yeah.
And so that's episode 9 of season 1, which I believe was November of 2023. And it is still our most ever watched episode on our YouTube channel. So feel free to check that out as well. And it's episode 9 was a fun one. So this was and appropriately named in our series, Fun Rail Excursions, because it is, that'd be a great name for a company.
It would.
Yeah. Fun Rail.
Fun Rail.
You might not get your car back for 120 days, but we're fun.
We're fun. You have a great time.
Oh, yeah. Never mind about cycle times. But no, Fun Rail Excursions would be fun for private, stuff, events and things like that. But this was the Illinois Railway Museum with treasurer Nigel Bennett, and I really, really, really enjoyed Nigel.
Yeah.
Again, another individual, as most of our guests, I'm hoping you're seeing this, folks, that a lot of our guests, I would like to say all of our guests, are truly experts
Oh, yes.
in what they do. And Nigel was no exception. Mm-hmm. And I really had fun with this one in particular because I grew up in Illinois, and the Illinois Railway Museum was a place that wasn't too far from me growing up.
So you kind of remember going there?
Big time. And I didn't go there until I was an adult, though.
Okay.
You know, but my dad and I are both into hot rods and muscle cars and stuff, and they do an event around my birthday in August that is, so their property, I think, is over 100 acres, if I remember right in the episode. And it's circular in nature. It's huge. And they have this tremendous car show.
Okay.
And it's everything from buses to hot rods to classic cars to trucks to off-road vehicles.
All kinds of.
And it's all segmented around the property. And you can take a train, actually several trains, and make stops at the different places you want to, what types of cars you want to see.
Right.
So if you want to see all Mopar stuff, you would jump off here. If you want to go see all the Ford cars and trucks, you'd jump off here, you know. And it was really neat the way it was laid out. So my dad and I would make that a trip in the summer times. For my birthday, go out there, check out the cars, and spend hours and hours and hours, and then head out. So that was neat for me to kind of be able to share some place that I've always enjoyed with everyone else. But I also thought it was a neat aspect of the episode that Nigel grew up in the UK. And so he was able to give us a very unique perspective of passenger rail, the differences and similarities even of the passenger rail that he grew up with in the UK versus here in the US. Yep. And particularly steam locomotives, because he loves steam locomotives.
Yep.
He was extremely knowledgeable on steam locomotives. And I even jokingly brought up the steam locomotive in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned if he didn't know exactly what steam locomotive that was.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's model number." I don't even want to try to butcher it, but I remember
He
was
knew
like,
exactly what it was, and that it was a real steam locomotive that was utilized during his childhood.
Yep.
So he recognized it, which I think was really neat. The one disappointing thing, Nigel, and I will say, is that you said there was no platform 9 3/4.
Yeah, that was the worst part of it.
I had run into far too many brick walls trying to find it. Now I know it was a worthless pursuit.
Could have saved my nose.
It's true. And my cranium.
Yeah.
So, all kidding aside, Nigel, it was an amazing episode, and I really enjoyed it. And gosh, there was so much to do there. And in my research again for the episode, I didn't realize, holy cow. I mean, I was aware of a lot, but there's so much. The museum was founded in 1953. Is enormous, again, over 100 acres. It's very interactive, so you can ride trains. I believe you can even ride some of the buses and that there. They have a very unique antique diner to have lunch in. So while there's so much to see, you're going to get hungry. You're going to spend half the day or a whole day there. And then all the events that they have throughout the year, like the car show I talked about, there's so many more. There's a Christmas train. I believe there's a train during the fall that you can do. So many different things. The steam fundraiser that they do, and there's over 500 exhibits in addition to all that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember, the number of exhibits that I was talking about.
And when I say 500, I mean they're large. Yeah,
it's not like a little, plaque on a wall. It's in some cases a whole train.
It's a whole train. Yeah. And many of them are, I think all of them are donated.
Yeah,
over time. And so the Pullman car exhibit and all that's for those of you that remember the Pullman cars. My parents do, because they grew up in Chicago. There's a ton of information about them as well. So, and I believe that's even a library that Pullman uses.
Yes,
for their own antique or their archives. So it's really, really cool. So check that out, episode 9 from last year, Fun Rail Excursions with Nigel Bennett of the Illinois Railway Museum. And please go check out the museum itself for those of you in the Midwest or who are interested in traveling out there. Episode 10 was our first ever in passenger rail. So this was with our intro to railroad safety with Crystal Blasius, Director of Safety for Investigations for Amtrak. And so Crystal, again, was our first ever guest from a passenger rail company from that sector. And she, again, a great guest, tons of knowledge.
I tell everyone something that she told us on that podcast to this.
Probably going to say the same thing I'm going to.
Yep, that's why I haven't said it. Go ahead.
But it was great that she shared about one thing that I have been in this industry forever, and I've loved trains forever, and I did not know about. This is probably what you're going to say. Maybe. The little blue sign.
We should have just said it.
Okay.
It was the blue sign.
That's crazy.
It's the most impactful information I think I've ever heard in my life as regards to the railroad and safety.
Well, especially when it's something that anyone can recognize.
Anyone.
You don't have to be technically savvy. You don't have to be a railroader.
My 8-year-old now knows the numbers for the railroad in our area that we cross.
Yeah.
Because I just told him about the blue sign, and he's looking for them every time. He's like, hey, that's the phone number.
And for those of you that haven't listened to or watched the episode yet.
Yeah, it might be very confusing right now, right?
Well, that's okay. That's another teaser.
That's the teaser,
to
go and listen
to the episode. But, Crystal brought up the subject of, we were talking about crossing safety in that, and how people try to run the tracks all the time. And it's so frustrating. And unfortunately, guys, and this is a very serious note, very, very shortly after this episode, my friend's uncle ran a crossing in Chicago and lost his life. Please, 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 please don't do that. Please. And we talked about it over and over and over in this episode. And
don't race the train.
If he had just listened to the episode, maybe it could have made a difference. Hopefully it makes a difference in your lives, those of you that are listening, and then others. And that's why I beg you guys to share some of these episodes. Actually, I'd love you to share all of them, but when it comes to safety, share the heck out of these episodes, because we really get into crossing safety. But this little blue sign she brought up, I never knew anything about.
No.
So what happens?
I had seen them.
Well, what happens sometimes, and I don't want to name particular instances because I'm not sure that was the case, but when something bad happens at a crossing, people tend to call 911, is what she was saying. And that can actually slow the process down, because let's say downtown Conroe, Texas, right here, right? there's multiple crossings for multiple rail lines.
Yep.
And so if you say, hey, there's an accident in downtown Conroe at the crossing on Fraser, it could be 4 different ones, 2 different railroads. So they're not sure who to call.
Right.
That there's a little blue sign on the post of every crossing, and I never knew this, that says specifically the crossing number. There's a number of that crossing. It's a code, essentially. And then the telephone number of who to call for that crossing. So you call them first. You tell them the incident took place, and here's the code for this crossing. They will take it from there. More than likely, they will call 911 themselves, because you're talking to someone that's their job. They're there to handle that situation for that railroad at that crossing. And that is so important because calling 911 directly could actually slow the process down,
because they don't know
what crossing you're exactly at. So man, that was, like you said, that was huge.
It was huge. Yeah. Biggest piece of information in rail I think I've learned this year.
Yeah. And gosh, and there's so many different things she's involved with safety wise, well beyond Amtrak. So please listen to the episode, guys. Again, that was episode 10 of season 2, Intro to Railroad Safety with Crystal Blasius. And she also mentioned there's 78,000 people a day that travel on Amtrak, and that blew my mind.
Yeah.
And we did get into some of the fun rail excursions for Amtrak as well that you could take, and I'm definitely going to be taking some of those.
I know. I'm looking into doing one this summer.
Are you?
Yep. Family trip.
See? It worked.
It worked.
It worked. We got you. And then Crystal was also our Honor Our Heroes Award winner for 2024.
Oh,
so congratulations again, Crystal. And I was honored to be able to pack her care package through our friends at Boots for Troops. So again, full transparency. I am a committee member and vice president. And no, I'm sorry, not vice president. Maybe this year. Maybe I'll get promoted.
Maybe this year,
captain for Boots for Troops. Maybe that was just truth to power.
You're just speaking it out.
Yeah, manifesting it, right?
Throwing it out there.
That's right. Yeah, Jimmy Lindsay, if you're listening, vice president.
Go, Tom.
Thank you. So they allowed me to pack the care package myself, which I also did the previous year for Joe Malik, that won the very, very first one. But that was really neat to be able to do that. And then Crystal messaged me and showed me when the package arrived, and she was so happy. And that's awesome. It was so great. So congratulations, Crystal. And we will be doing the Honor Heroes packages again in 2025 for the third year or third season.
I was hoping we would.
We are. I just want to say this to anyone out there. There are, I think it's the veterans to non-veterans in our industry is 2 to 1.
Oh, wow.
Approximately. So there are a ton of veterans out there. Now, we've done this for 2 years. We're going to be going into our 3rd season doing this. And the amount of submissions that we get is, honestly, we could do better.
Yeah.
We could do better as an industry. So if you're asking if I'm calling you out, the answer is yes, because we can do better and our veterans deserve better. So when I announce it this year, which I think I usually announce it in June, and folks have until September or so to submit everything, start thinking now of who you want to submit. And the process really isn't that arduous. It's not. And you're probably going to pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I need this information from you because I want to submit you for this. I understand that some people's pride gets in the way and say, hey, I really don't want to be submitted for anything. I get that. But at least try, because these folks deserve it. Maybe you can talk to their spouse or their significant other and get this information too, or a coworker. I don't know.
Mom.
There's a way to do it. It only takes a few minutes, but please, we need them to be recognized. And that's where the challenge coins come from and everything else that we do, because we really want to show our love for our veterans. So let's do better this year, please, as an industry. Let's get these people submitted. And I'll let you guys know when that is. Again, I think it's probably going to be June or so when we fire that up again.
Yeah.
So episode 11 was Intro to the Federal Agency PHMSA. Man, So this is another one that I was knocking on PHMSA's door, and I think they got tired of me and finally said, okay, well, come on. No, I'm teasing. I'm totally teasing. But again, it's a government entity. It's a federal agency, so I totally understand that sometimes that takes time, to build that relationship. And we did, and I want to thank Amon Patrick for coming on. He's transportation specialist with PHMSA. And what a tremendous episode that was. So much so that the representatives from PHMSA really, really liked how it turned out and said, hey, and again, I'm not talking out of school here because I think they'd be okay with me saying this. They said, we would like to do this again. And as we come up with new regulations, new laws and so forth, we would like to come on the podcast. And man, that really meant a lot to me. Because it took a long time to be able to get to the point of having them on the podcast, but to be recognized as, hey, you guys are legit. What you're doing is good for the industry. We want to continue to be a part of this. And so, so that really meant a lot to me. So thank you again to everyone at PHMSA and for sharing as well, because PHMSA did take the episode and pushed it out there further to their followers, which was huge for us and very meaningful. So he was, Amon was our first guest from a government regulatory agency, not the last.
Nope.
We'll get to that in a minute. But he was our first, and we really went through a ton of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Covered a lot of ground, all of which was relevant. And again, it was, to your point earlier, some of it can be high-level stuff, so we tried to break it down into,
I think you did a great job. Me, having no idea what you were talking about, understood the episode. Yeah. So I think you did a good job at anybody in the industry definitely knew what you were talking about.
Well, and it's important because these are regulations that affect all of us in the industry.
Right.
And
it's I was realizing these regulations actually affect me.
Sure.
As a driver.
Yeah, they certainly could. Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about one in particular that was extremely meaningful to those in the tank car world. That's the HM265 pending regulation regarding proposed changes to the existing tank car and equipment design and tank car repair facility quality assurance processes. That they're looking at potentially rescinding the sole authority that's currently delegated to the Association of American Railroads. Because the AAR is not a government entity, and they have had delegated authority, sole authority, for these things for some time now, and this is proposing to take that sole authority away. So they'll still be able to do it. And guys, you have to listen to the episode. I don't want to get into the weeds on this.
There's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it, but it's extremely important because it's a huge change, and there's a lot of questions that I had because he knew the answer to everything, literally, because he was a big part of writing this, and which I think Amon told me it took 5 years to get to this point.
Yeah,
these things don't happen overnight.
No.
So, and it was 90 some odd pages worth of stuff. So, I didn't expect the poor guy to know every last thing that he had written in there over 5 years.
Yeah,
but the good thing is that he said that there's a comment period. And so if you have questions like I did, you can go in and submit those questions and comments. And I think that's tremendous. And again, he mentioned too, hey, we're a resource. Think of us as a resource as well. And like I said at the end and during my 2 cents, they're not the boogeyman.
Nope.
Neither is the FRA, neither is DOT.
Any of the 3 letters,
Right, any of the acronyms.
Well, I guess some are more than 3, but
Well, yeah, that's true. But, they're not necessarily the boogeyman. They're meant to be a resource. So he said that himself, hey, we have a comment period, which at the time was January. I think it was supposed to be, was it this past Monday or this coming Monday? I think it was this coming Monday initially. We're still, by the way, when we're recording here, we're still in January. So, but they have pushed that back and extended it to April 28th. So I want to make sure that you guys hear that. Nice. So if you're interested in learning about the HM265, listen to episode 11 from season 2 with Amon Patrick from PHMSA. And then if you want to make a comment on that or have a question about it or concern about it, you can submit all that by April 28th. So that has been extended, April 28th of 2025. And I think that's extremely important.
Absolutely.
There. And then there's more agencies to come for this year. Okay. So for season 3, we actually have other government agencies that have agreed to come on. I'm very excited about that because people in our industry have heard the acronym, PHMSA, and these others. I don't want to give it away who it is yet. But they don't necessarily know who they are, what they do, what they don't do, what their role is in our industry. So I think it's extremely important to be able to get these folks on and kind of share, a little bit about themselves. So thank you again, Amon. It was huge. And I also know other people in the industry now that have gotten in contact with PHMSA to talk about these things too, which I think is great.
That's awesome.
Because it's really
getting networking. It's doing everything we want to do.
Getting the conversation out there, which needs to be had for sure. So episode 12.
Well, my favorite of the year. I just want to say I had a blast making this episode.
Well, I haven't told them what it is yet.
I know, but I just wanted to preface it.
That it was a blast?
I had a blast making this episode.
So episode 12 was our Christmas special with Peyton Riley and Bubba Wesley.
Yep.
And this episode was very special to me because it was a huge leap of faith by me.
Yeah.
Because it was a total departure
from the normal format,
from anything we had done before. And I had actually thought about it the previous year.
We even talked about how this may not be what we should do this month,
Yeah. I was pretty convicted this year.
Yeah.
This past season. The previous season, I was on the fence because the podcast was pretty new. We'd only had, I think, 9 episodes at that point.
Yeah, it was.
And I wasn't quite sure how it would be received. Not that people didn't want to talk about Christmas or...
Right.
It was that we are a railroad podcast.
And it's sort of off-brand.
A little. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, you know what? When you think about Christmas, you think about the little baby Jesus.
Exactly.
First. Oh, I got the thumb going. Think about the little baby Jesus first. And then you think about, I guess, Santa, right?
Yeah.
And kids and stuff. And then you think about trains.
Yeah.
Because you think about Polar Express and different things like that.
Time, yeah.
And Christmas trees when you were growing up, whether it was at your house or church or whatever, there was always a little train running around. So to me, it all made sense. And of course, music. The Christmas songs, Christmas carols, and I know that I'd say at least half of them that I listened to as a kid were country music artists singing. And part of that's my family because I grew up in a very country music family with my grandfather, and I talk about that in the episode as well. Yeah. And I've played guitar forever. John's played guitar and sang forever. So it just kind of made sense. And I remember you telling me I just had to find a way to tie it all together.
Make it make sense.
And I said, let's do it. Let's do this. And I hope I tied it all together. Listen to the episode, guys. If you haven't yet, let me know your thoughts. We have had great feedback. So the Joe Schishler Sr. episode we talked about before from season 1 was the biggest downloaded total. Like, it's been over a year now, but that has the total most downloads of any video. But this Christmas special smoked all of the episodes in video downloads in the first 30 days. I mean, not even close.
Oh, yeah.
Crushed it.
I knew it was going to with the nature of the 2 artists we had on and them sharing it. The video would outperform.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, too, that country music promoters in Nashville got a hold of this.
Yes, they did.
And they pushed it.
And that helped.
So we had our sponsors pushing it. So thank you.
And it was Christmas time.
Well, sure. And we're probably going to release the episode earlier this year to give it more time for everybody.
That's not a bad idea.
But we had our sponsors pushing it out there. So thank you again, Alden Company and EnviroServe and others for pushing that episode. But a lot of you all were sharing it on your social media pages and that. And man, it's been tremendous. So I had one person that works for one of our sponsors that said not only did they enjoy it, but they've listened to it 5 times.
That's awesome.
And they shared it with everybody they could think of. And
I had all the Christmas songs that we did, the ones live in the room, the live performances.
Yeah.
I had those on repeat, and I did a couple DJ gigs that I threw them in on.
Did you really?
Yeah, might as well.
Well, and that was the thing, and I want to give producer John a huge pat on the back because we, as a podcast, hadn't done that before, hadn't done live music before. Even though I have background in hosting events with live music, it wasn't the same as this.
I had done live music a lot.
But this is a different animal.
Yeah.
And so we went from having 2 mics on average to, 7?
7.
And so just you setting it up was totally different.
Totally different setup. Totally different. Yeah.
And John always sends me at the first cut, like if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And man, to me,
I sent you a cut sooner on this episode too because I was so excited about it and wanted you to see it. Yeah.
Well, and to me, I wanted to be able to hear something that made it sound like for our listeners that they were in the room with us.
Right.
And it did.
It did.
And even Peyton Riley and Bubba Wesley were impressed by how it turned out. The video, I don't like watching myself on video. I've said that multiple times. It's hard for me.
Editing this episode is going to be the hardest episode for me ever right now, but it'll be fun.
But that episode, I really enjoyed it. And a big part of it was you were able to infuse Bubba's video for his Christmas song.
And we watched it in the room.
And that turned out great. That is the first episode I have ever done mirroring with my iPhone.
Yeah.
On a television because my parents came over for Christmas. They spent the week with me for Christmas.
That's cool. And
they wanted to watch the thing. And the screen for iPhone's pretty small.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I think I can find a way to get this up on the TV. And man, that was cool. So that's one of the few episodes that I watch myself on video and go, I can live with this. Looking at myself, I mean, I have a hard time with that.
It was just a cool time, a cool experience. We had a blast making that episode too. Like in the room, it was fun. Like there's a lot cut out of that episode just from, and here's some behind the scenes for you. So this is why you want to listen to this episode all the way through. But just the way that, we had to get up and get guitars, and there was a few logistics things here and there in that episode. So there was a lot of downtime here and there where we got to joke around with the artists and stuff, and we just had a blast doing that.
Well, and then the fact that they were friends, because it turns out that you knew Bubba.
I did.
I've known Bubba for a couple of years, I guess it is now, and I know Peyton through fundraising and stuff, and her mom and her grandparents and everybody. So it was so chill.
It was.
And I think you can hear that through the episode as well, is that we really enjoyed spending time together. And Bubba and Peyton both had new releases that were played live, I believe, for the first time. It's kind of
a real Christmas celebration, like a legit, real Christmas celebration.
It really was. And the podcast, and I didn't know this ahead of time, was that this was the first time Peyton had ever played her song live, her Christmas song live. And I think Bubba was the same. So that was huge,
It wasn't the first time, but he hadn't done it in a year. Because
that he played it live,
that he had played that song or whatever. I think that's what.
But for Peyton, I know that
I may be wrong. Bubba will correct me if I am.
That's okay. Either way, it was a great experience.
It was.
Yeah, and so please listen to that. And also, I know it's not Christmas, but it's Christmas all year long in your heart, people. So
that's right.
The other thing too is that both of them talked about upcoming really, really exciting things. So Bubba is a finalist for Male Vocalist of the Year, and I would love if you guys would be willing to go and log into this internet site for this award and get him voted for. So please vote for him. It's at trrma.net. That's trrma.net/vote.
That's it.
And vote for Bubba Wesley for Male Vocalist of the Year.
Do it.
And then Peyton, she actually has a new single coming out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that's coming out on February 13th. And so you can go to PeytonRileyMusic.com. Again, it's PeytonRileyMusic.com. And I think you can you
can save it or whatever. Yeah,
for the 13th. And so those of you that live in the Houston area or reasonably close by, she's doing a show at the Do-Si-Do here in Houston.
The Do-Si-Do Cafe, right?
The smaller one, it's breakfast and barbecue, breakfast, whiskey, and barbecue.
That's it.
Yeah. So there's two. There's a huge one just called Do-Si-Do, and then there's a smaller venue called the Do-Si-Do Breakfast, Barbecue, and Whiskey. I always get it wrong.
Yeah.
But they sold out.
Oh, nice.
Already.
That's awesome.
So that's great for her.
Great for her.
So you're going to have to download it through their website to get access to it, because unfortunately you won't be able to buy a ticket now for the actual event.
There you go.
So, man. So anything else you want to go over from the previous 12 episodes from season 2?
I just want to say, Don, it has been a blast doing this podcast with you. And the stuff that I've learned has been impactful but practical at the same time, and things that I never thought I would take away from a railroad podcast. Like, I would encourage you out there, if you're listening to this and you're not in the industry, keep listening, because there's something for you.
Thank you. That was really our hope. Right? Is have a little bit of something for everybody. Yeah. And so when you talked about, your son,
the thumb. Yeah, he was teaching his cousin or somebody. It was another kid that he was telling him, because it was fireworks for New Year's. Is what.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is so cool. Yeah. And that's really the idea is, I really believe that God's put us all in a position of making an impact on people's lives. Yeah. And I say that all the time to people. Yeah. It's up to you whether you're making a positive one or a negative one, but he gives us a chance. You're making an impact. You're making an impact. And so that with the podcast, that was really kind of a part of the idea. Yeah. And that's from this past year especially, but I think season 1 and season 2, we've had such a wide variety of topics. We've had such a wide variety of special guests that are experts in their field. Yeah. That everyone can get something out of it, and hopefully make an impact, like, the safety stuff especially, and everything else. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? But that's the blessing of it all. It is. We have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what comes out of this year, just based on, I want to say we hit a rhythm in like the last 3 months or so that's different than where we've been. And I feel like this is like a trudging rhythm, you know what I mean? Like, we've hit something that I think we really found the momentum there, and I'm curious to see how this builds from this point.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's something that at the Mars conference, people were saying was they could actually tell, for me personally, that I was more comfortable.
Yep.
Over the last 6 months.
Yeah, there was one episode. I couldn't tell you when it happened, but there was a point where you just like are a podcast host all of a sudden. Like, you were always a host. You always had a good voice. You always had the idea there. But there was one point where the newness, the nervousness, all that kind of just was gone, and you were like seasoned podcast host. And I don't know when it happened per se, but it kind of in this last year, I want to say, is when I really noticed, like, wow, look at us go.
Well, thank you. And it definitely helps to have someone like you on board that's done this before.
Yeah.
So I know I've already thanked you a million times.
You have, so you don't have to do it again.
But thank you again, because it really does help. If I was doing this by myself, at home with my iPhone.
Yeah.
Or something.
It's a totally different experience than when you have someone to bounce ideas off of and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. But thank you. And thank you to all of you out there that have made comments on things like that. And there is one person on YouTube that has made some really kind reviews on YouTube. So now I hadn't even thought about reviews on YouTube, because I always look at the ones on Apple Podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
But obviously you can make reviews on YouTube as well. So everybody, please consider that too, because they're wonderful reviews that we've seen so far, and please continue to do that, because it definitely helps encourage others when they're looking at the video. Go, oh, this must be pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that I want to tell the audience in this episode is reach out to our guests and to Don. Make sure you're reaching out. If you have something to say, just say it to us, or to them, to whoever it is. Just reach out. We want to hear from you. As the podcast, American Railroading Podcast, wants to hear from you guys. So bring it on.
Yeah, and you can go through our website. There's a tab you can click on and send us any questions you may have or thoughts that you may have. And we do read them. So as we mentioned earlier about the gentleman with the U.S. Transportation Corps, U.S. Army Transportation Corps, even though I'm not always able to respond, we definitely read them.
Oh, yeah.
And we make adjustments and things like that based on some of the stuff that you send us. So I totally agree. So we have some time left. Do you want to get into the Q&A portion?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So what are some of your favorite moments from season 2? You asked me mine, but what are yours?
Well, I would say, we talked about Professor John Doggett earlier.
Yeah.
Somebody I respect a ton that has a wealth of experience with TV, radio, podcasts, that kind of thing, of his own. So something I did not expect in the episode, because we don't go over this stuff with our guests. That's something you guys should probably know, and you probably figured that out already, is that I don't go over the questions with them or anything like that. It's very much I want it to feel real, right? But sometimes the answers surprise me, because I don't know what their answers are going to be either. I can anticipate to some degree, but he actually surprised me and said that he'd been following my career all along. I'm like, holy cow,
wow,
me? So that was really neat. So that was one of my favorite moments, is when he had said that he'd been following my career, and that meant a lot to me for somebody with his standing. And then the other is at the very end, when I asked if there's anything else that he would like to add, he pulled back the curtain a little bit for our audience and talked about how difficult having a podcast is. Although, they don't see that and they don't hear that necessarily in the day-to-day, because, they shouldn't. This is entertaining. This is supposed to be educational and entertaining for them, so they don't need to hear or know all that stuff. But he knows, because he's been through this and he's had his own radio shows and that. So for him to pull back the curtain a little bit and say, hey, you guys need to understand how difficult this is for Don to do all the time. I thought that was really nice of him to say as well, because it can be challenging to pull this all together.
Sometimes, to get the content, the guests, the technical stuff. I mean, there's some stuff that's happened behind the scenes y'all don't even know about.
Well, and writing the episodes out,
that's I think one of the most time-consuming things is, what am I going to say?
Or how does it make sense? How do I make it make sense? And flow. Because it needs to flow in a way that people aren't going to get bored, and that it's going to be interesting for them.
Right.
And kind of, for me, I always say I write them as a story.
Yeah.
With an opening, a body, and a closing. And I'm not necessarily trying to give people the answer. I don't want to draw the conclusion for them.
Yes.
I want to give them the answers in there, and the data in there, and then come to their own conclusions.
Right.
And that can be challenging at times. Well, geez, how am I going to make this make sense to people?
Right.
And make them want to actually listen to it. So thank you again, Professor Doggett. That really meant a ton to me.
Yeah.
Another is the Christmas special, because that was a huge leap of faith. Because I really just was like, God, I hope I'm making the right decision here.
Hope and then,
right. At least 2 people are going to click like.
Yeah.
And when it took off the way it did, I really was not surprised after having done the episode, because we just had a feeling during the episode that I cannot explain.
Like I said, it was like a real Christmas celebration.
It really was.
Yeah, I was like, this is going to be fine. As we were recording it, this is going to be great.
It was like you just knew this was going to be a hit.
Mm-hmm.
So that was tremendous. Being able to give away another Boots for Troops on our Heroes Award was huge for me. And seeing the joy on Crystal's, not her face, because I couldn't see her, but the email that she sent me with the picture of everything, and just continuing to say how grateful she was. That's what it's all about. Is making our veterans feel recognized. And we definitely recognize you guys out there. We're going to continue to do that. And then, as I said earlier, being able to have such a range of topics, the quality of our guests, getting the recognition from government agencies like PHMSA as a legitimate source of information for our industry, that's huge.
Huge.
That's what one of the goals for me, and there's many of them with the podcast, but one of the goals for me was to be considered a true, legit source of information for our industry, because nobody had ever done this before.
No,
we are the first. We will always be the first. We'll always have that, but it's important to continue to grow and continue to become a leader. I hope in the industry for being a resource. So that
absolutely,
all of those things are my favorites from season 2.
Yeah. What about audience responses? Has there been any favorite interactions with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, and some were very unexpected. And I don't want to, again, talk out of school for some of this stuff, but I was truly honored to be able to fly to Chicago in August, end of July, beginning of August, for Joe Schischler Sr.'s memorial. And the responses I got from family and friends was truly incredible and totally unexpected. And I knew pretty much everyone. I'd been around the family since I was a teenager. But the subject that came up was the episode.
Yeah.
And it was, thank you so much for doing this episode. We listened to it on the way here, or we were going to listen. We've committed to listening to it on our way home, because some had to travel quite a distance.
Yeah.
And the gentleman that was doing the eulogy actually said that he was going to listen to it as well to get some thought of who he was and what he was about. Man, that was just huge, because that's truthfully, I wanted to do that episode for someone that I truly loved. It was a part of my life in ways I can't even explain, that opened this door for me. And so
it was really cool to create that, to get to, from the outside view, see, there's this man that kind of met this kid, and then this kid became this man. And
it's not just me.
Yeah.
I mean, right after that episode released, there was a Christmas event here in Houston for our industry. Man, I had people walking up to me that I hadn't seen in years, that I'd forgotten even worked for the company.
Oh, wow.
That were in tears. One particular person was in tears, coming up to me telling me that they cried watching the episode. And this was before he had passed.
Right.
But it just made so much of an impact on them, remembering all the good times and stuff that they had. But for the family to say that to me was huge. And that's, if I never get another compliment about the podcast again,
you'll be good. Yeah,
I'll be good. So that was tremendous. We still get a lot of thank yous for creating the podcast in the first place. For being focused on the industry, for being a voice to the industry and giving us a sense of pride. There are some CEOs out there from Class 1 railroads at the conferences. I hear them saying, we need to get a sense of pride back in the industry, because we get beat up a lot in the media, the mainstream media, for things. And that was truly another goal of mine, was to create a platform where we could have create more sense of pride in what we do, and to get the truth out there about what we do and how safely we do it and so forth. So it's always nice to get those comments from people. People saying, I didn't know that.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I get that a lot. And it could be a 30 or 40 year employee in the industry, and there's some nugget or tidbit in every episode that they can pull out and say, you know, I didn't know that. So that's huge.
So if you see Don out at one of these conferences, make sure, and you're a podcast listener, make sure you walk up there and tell him something that you learned that you did not know, if that's the case.
And I get that also from people that are, this is really neat. So this has been happening more and more recently, where I'll have people reach out to me and say, hey, we've hired a new employee for our company, and it may be a shipper, maybe a repair company, cleaning company, and they actually turn them on to the podcast.
Yeah.
To learn more about what they're going to be doing.
That's cool.
Hey, perfect. That's why we do this. So that's really neat. The Christmas special, again, I know that keeps coming up, but everyone talked about how genuine both Peyton and Bubba were.
Yeah.
And their stories about their upbringing, their family. I mean, it was just so genuine. And I love that because, again, we don't script these things.
No.
So I had no idea how they were going to react to the questions I was asking. But, man, both of them completely just opened up and were just, hey.
Went for it.
This is who we are. This is how, you know, totally honest. You know, no facade, and that was incredible, and that we get a lot of comments on that. Yeah, which I think were some of my favorite responses. And then the last one I could think of, this is kind of funny, was at the Midwest Association of Rail Shippers conference again here in January. Perfect example of what happens to me a lot since creating the podcast, especially, is that I cannot make it 5 feet without somebody pulling me aside and saying, "Hey, man." I mean, which is a blessing. So thank you. Please keep doing that. But it can be really challenging when you've had a bunch of coffee and you're trying to make your way to the restroom. Yeah. And I laugh about that because that's exactly what happened.
I'll be back in 2 minutes.
And I'm like, guys, wait, give me a minute. And I'm laughing just thinking about this. But and the gentleman who this is will laugh because he remembers that when this happened. But I'm from where our meetings was on the first floor, and then a vendor like networking area was on the second floor. And so there's a stairwell you take to get up there, man. And I'm trying to get up the stair. I made it 2 steps. Somebody's talking to me. 2 more steps. Somebody's talking to me. 2 more steps. And finally I said, stop. I gotta go. I'll be right back.
Sometimes you gotta just tell them how it is. Hey, look, either you're about to see something really embarrassing or I gotta walk over there, okay?
But that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
And it's always about, well, I obviously have 2 companies. I have the consulting company with railcar leasing and consulting with brokering and stuff like
Revolution Rail Group.
Revolution Rail Group, yeah. So some of it was that, but a lot of it was the podcast and ideas about guests and questions about sponsorship, and talking about specific episodes that they wanted to know more information about, like the PHMSA episode was a big one. I mean, a lot of people were talking to me about the HM265 pending ruling from PHMSA that's coming up. So that all these things are total blessings, but those are all responses that in the last year or so that have made an impact on me.
So, Don, I think it's safe to say that season 2 was definitely a success, and season 3 is kicking off that way so far. What can you tell us about? I know we're going to keep some things a little tight, you know, because we want surprises. But what can you tell us about season 3? What is coming up?
So there's going to be a lot of change. Not a lot of change, but change.
There's change, okay.
And good things.
Yes.
So we're going to continue to grow the podcast and go in directions that I think are going to really excite people, whether it's different topics, different types of guests. I don't want to give too much away because there's a little bit of
want you to watch
mystery. Yeah. But I've made some more investment in the podcast as well, which you know about.
Yep.
And so all that's going to have an impact on those that are listening and watching. I think it's probably going to be.
I think it'll affect those that go out to those conconferences too.
And the people at the conferences. Yeah. Definitely our YouTube subscribers.
So
because some of it's going to be visual. And I'll just give away one. So I was invited to go to the MXV Rail, go through the smokehouse. So I may end up doing that this year. It depends on scheduling, but something like that where you can actually not only hear what we're doing, but see it. Me go through there, I think would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So some stuff like that. We have more people requesting sponsorship packages in the last 30 days. So we may have some new sponsors coming on board, which is exciting this year. We've got 2 new series. So I laughed when I called it this, but Regulators. I was thinking Young
Regulators, right.
So
I love that movie.
Our first Regulators episode in the series really was PHMSA last year, and then Stars and Railcars. I've wanted to do Stars and Railcars series for a long time, and the Christmas episode was really the first one. There's so many people that are outside of our industry that that are either musicians or they're involved in one thing or another that you would consider them a star. But they love the railroad industry and they love trains. And I almost said one name, but that talked my ear off for an hour about trains. I'm like, really? You like trains? This is amazing. Yep. So yeah, man, there's a lot coming up this year that I think people are going to get really excited about.
I think so too. And as far as the industry itself, is there any big developments or changes? I know that isn't there some regulation that's come up? Is that this year that it's come up? Like, what do you see in the industry this year? I guess is my question.
Well, I think specifically the election, the presidential election and the new administration that's come in, I think could make an impact. I know it's a little outside the box thinking, but it is very possible that could make somewhat of an impact. And I say that because of the new administration's desire to embrace energy. Yeah. And drill, baby, drill, and different things that are being said. And recently there was I think it was just 2 days ago, from the time we're recording, where there was a lift of the moratorium on exporting of liquefied natural gas, LNG. And that was actually something we talked about with Eamon Patrick from PHMSA on his episode. There's a ruling that was authorized back in the first Trump administration to be able to ship LNG by rail and tank cars. And that's been put on hold. Now that could take place. They have until July of 2025 to come up with a decision on that. But now that the Trump administration is back, it's very possible.
He just held up another decision that was pending with the TikTok ban. So, he could very well.
Well, I mean, it ultimately is up to PHMSA to make the decision. Yeah. But it is possible that with the administration being very friendly toward the energy, petrochemical energy sector, that could happen. And then that could potentially lead to more shipping by rail. Right. Potentially. It doesn't happen overnight. The thing about the crude by rail stuff and petrochemical products is that we really don't have the tank cars available right now. Whatever's out there is utilized for the most part. So that would mean potentially more of a ramp up for new car builds. But I will say this, the cars that are available, if there are any, folks, you can reach out to me, again, at the Revolution Rail Group. Well, D. Walsh at the revolutionrailgroup.com. If you're looking for cars specifically for this service, because I am getting more and more phone calls. There are some cars out there. If you have cars that you want to, find a home for, I can help you with that as well. But, there are a lot of cars. There's 50,000 plus tank cars due for regulatory compliance this year. There was 35,000 or so due from last year that are carrying over into this year. So there's a lot of backlog in shops. So I really encourage our shops to do everything you can to get these cars in and out, because I think potentially
that last month or so could really see a bottleneck.
Well, the bottleneck's already there. Gotcha. But I think that we could see a greater need for some of this stuff as this year and the next 4 years progress. I don't think there's going to be an overbuild like we had with the ethanol cars years ago. Right. We've learned from that mistake, but I do think that potentially there is some opportunity.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's really insightful too, and thank you for sharing that. I think that's going to be really impactful for the audience. Is there anything else about this year? Anything else you just want to tell us?
Just thank you. Honestly.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you to our listeners and subscribers. And you're the reason why we continue to grow. You're the reason why our sponsors want to continue to come on board, is because you continue to listen to us and follow us and give us your 5-star reviews and share us. And so that's a big, big deal. I am trying to consider getting us into different types of media platforms in addition to what we're already doing. It is time consuming. So I'm trying to figure that out, but I don't think it would necessarily hurt anything if we can get onto a couple different platforms and push us out even further. I know you talked about that as well. We'll keep that under wraps until we launch it. But I think we're going to do some more of that. But thank you so much for everything that you guys do and being so loyal to the podcast. If anybody wants to visit with me, I will be at the Southwest Association of Rail Shippers Conference coming up March 18th and 19th here in Dallas, Texas. And I'll be bringing 10 challenge coins with me to hand out. So if you're a veteran in the industry and you would like one, I'll only have 10 with me at the time, but feel free to contact me either in person or through the website or what have you, and let's meet up. But please continue to follow us and share us and leave 5-star reviews.
Awesome.
Anything from you, John? What else do you want to add before we wrap up for today?
Before we wrap for today, one, thank you for listening. Seriously, thank you guys. I think the thing I'd like to add is I'd like to hear more from y'all. What do y'all like? What do you not like? What do you want to see? Do you want to see more Don doing fun stuff, more fun rail excursion type stuff? What do y'all want? Let us know, and we'll make it happen, because we're enjoying what we're doing, but we can, pivot.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely we can. And if you want to see John shave his beard live on the...
That will not happen.
No,
sorry.
Okay, we'll remove that then.
I will end up divorced.
I was just going to say...
If the beard comes off, I don't have a wife anymore, so...
We don't want that.
We don't want that. I don't want that. I really don't want that, so...
But you can reach us at info@americanrailroading.net with any suggestions you might have other than that. And, what was the pie that Bubba wanted a recipe for?
Buttercream.
Buttercream pie, that's right. And
it's kind of like cheesecake, but not cheesecake. But the way he described it is perfect, because that is exactly what it is.
So that was on the podcast. You have to listen to the whole episode, but nobody sent us a recipe for
a buttercream pie?
Buttermilk, right? Buttermilk pie.
Buttermilk pie.
Yeah, so do that if you have it as well.
I know someone that I'm going to ask.
Nice.
A great cook.
There we go.
All right.
Well, I guess that's it for our season 3, episode 1, where we've been, where we're going. And with that, I'd like to recognize our platinum sponsor, the Alden Company. Founded in 1904, Alden has been an industry leader, charting a steady course in the manufacturing and distribution of a wide variety of railroad safety and track repair tools and more. The Alden website boasts over 800 catalog items to choose from, with categories including track maintenance and repair, derailers and railers, signs and lights, wheel chocks and stops, rail cars and locomotives, and even truck docks. Alden provides outstanding customer service with a wide variety of solutions, and when you call them, you will always get a real person to talk to, not an automated service. While based in the Chicagoland area, the Alden name is known internationally, and with over 120 years in the rail industry, they're a company you can count on. Please reach out to our friends at Alden today at 847-623-8800 or e-rail@aldenco.com. You can also review all of their products and resources on their website at www.aldenco.com. Alden, keeping things on track since 1904. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize our anchor sponsor, again, the Revolution Rail Group. And so again, we are a consulting and brokering firm in the railcar industry. So if you need assistance with any kind of merger and acquisition consulting, process flow analysis, market analysis, we can help you with that. We would also help you with buying, selling, leasing, and subleasing of railcars, including DOT 117Js and Rs for petrochemical service, because I know that's a big need right now out there, and LPG cars. You can reach out to us today at info@therevolutionrailgroup.com. You can also call us at 844-455-3434. You can check out our full suite of services at our website at therevolutionrailgroup.com. Our online store is going to be back live by the time this airs, so please go ahead and check that out. Go to our website, americanrailroading.net, click on the stores tab, and shop to your heart's desire. Stay tuned for our next episode in February. This is going to be an amazing episode. I can't tell you about it just yet, but please tune in for that. In the meantime,
going to be good.
I think so. Absolutely. It's going to be one of our best. God bless. Make it a great day, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us on the American Railroading Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover on a future episode or want to support or sponsor the show, please visit our website at americanrailroading.net.